guys can see me, but I can't see you, but that's all right.
Okay, we're all here in the world of virtual meetings and webinars. This is the norm. I apologize, everyone, but we are all here. We're ready to begin. And I just want to start off by thanking everyone for being here tonight. I know that the time spent here is valuable. We have some awesome content for you guys tonight. And this is the GAWL Path to Empowerment series. And this is hosted by the Public Affairs and Programs Committee. And we created this Path to Empowerment series last year to highlight issues that are relevant to the empowerment of women, especially women lawyers in Georgia. So we hope that you all get something from this presentation tonight. If it's whether to empower another woman to run or to run yourself. We have some awesome, phenomenal panelists. But right now I'm going to turn it over to our president, Tina Folsom, for her presidential remarks.
I want to echo what Karima has said. I want to thank each of you for your time. The theme for GAWL this year is connection. And I am very thankful for technology this evening, although we had some glitches this morning, right when we got started, but that we are able to connect and record this piece so that we can push it out to our members that were unable to join due to a conflict of the exact time and date. But I think that this message is important as I have run for office and as we need to increase the women running. It'll be interesting to hear what you all have to say, to share your words of wisdom to us. And I really want to thank Emerge for their presentation as well tonight. So with that, we will get started.
There we go. We are going to start off with a brief presentation from Maggie Chambers, who is the Executive Director of Emerge Georgia. If you're like me, you probably are not familiar with Emerge. She's going to tell us a little bit about the organization. Maggie is in the newest Executive Director for Emerge Georgia. It's an organization that recruits and trains Democratic women to run for office. Prior to joining Emerge, she worked at the Democratic Party of Georgia. She led the messaging strategy, and she did that throughout the 2020 election cycle. And prior to working with the Democratic Party, she worked in research and communications for the Abrams for Governor campaign and in the Virginia Governor's office. So I'm going to turn it over to Maggie for a brief presentation.
Thank you so much, Karima. Thank you so much to GAWL for having me. I am always down to talk about why we need more women in politics and getting to especially hear from this amazing panel I am excited by. So I'm going to make this as short as I can because I'm really excited to hear from the rest of our panelists. So we're going to talk a little bit about why, where we're at, who's running, how many women are running for office now, what our representation looks like, and then talk about some ways to start thinking about taking that next step, how you can get involved, whether it's running as a candidate yourself or how you can be supporting many of those women on the run right now. We can go to the next slide. So first of all, I always like to start every presentation. I do like this, but just saying thank you. Having conversations like this is exactly how we change the face of politics and power in our state. More women encouraging each other to run, encouraging themselves to run for office is so important for how we do this long-term transformational work. So thank you. Next slide. What is Emerge? So as you heard Karima say, Emerge America's mission is to increase the number of Democratic women in office who are reflective of the incredible diversity of the Democratic Party by recruiting, training, and providing a powerful network. Now, I know that GAWL is nonpartisan. I know that we're talking about not a lot of nonpartisan races here when we talk about judgeships, and Emerge absolutely is here to support any woman who identifies as Democrat who wants to run for any nonpartisan office. I'm going to be talking kind of broad strokes of what women's representation looks like in the state regardless of party, but I do want you to understand where we come from so that you understand when I'm a little biased when I talk about some of our alums down the line. All right, moving right along. So what we do, so Emerge Georgia recruits. We know that on average, women need to be asked 7 times to run for office. Often it's more. I can promise, I don't know the exact number for how many times a man needs to be asked, but I can promise you it is a lot less than that. So we work within communities to do strategic recruitment 365 days a year. As you heard, I am based in Georgia. I've been here for a while. I'm the founding executive director of Emerge Georgia. This is my first full year being on the job. But what I really love about it is getting the chance to keep talking to the communities and the women who are running this state already and just don't get and haven't gotten their elected office yet. What else do? We train. This is the key hallmark of what Emerge does. We hold multiple trainings throughout the year geared to meet women right where they are and move them closer to run for office and win. We just finished up the selection process for our 2022 candidate boot camp, which is launching next month. We do short trainings like that happen in half an hour to an hour. We do long trainings. Our signature program training is happening this fall. It goes from September to January. So we are really dedicated to making sure that women get the resources that they need to go run for office. They have a campaign plan and they feel supported. And a really key part of that support is that we build a network. Emerge's sisterhood is over 5,000 women strong across the country. Here in Georgia, we have 30 alums already since we got started in 2017. And our sisterhood really helps women change how politics is done by lifting as we climb and by having that network of, sisters who you can go to talk about what you need to get done. We have, whether it's talking about, okay, how do I actually figure out childcare, parent care? What is it like to run as a woman of color when you're talking about an institution that is surrounded by white men? The intangible support network of what Emerge does is really powerful and it's one of my favorite things about my job. We can go to the next slide. So why women and why NAM women in particular? So something we talk a lot about at Emerge is the new American majority. Black, brown, and Indigenous women of color, LGBTQ+ women, young women, unmarried women represent a growing force in American politics. And that new American majority is already reaching 50% plus one of Georgians. So Emerge as an organization is working to reach 100,000 women of the new American majority by 2035. Now, why do we talk about women? We know that women are more likely to be bipartisan in their governance. They're more likely to be more effective leaders. Women are more likely to have an authentic connection to the communities that we serve and end up being more representative of the people that are employing them as their voters. We also really focus on talking about electing women because this work really matters. Elections are competitive at every single level from school board to Senate. And the work that is impacting our lives every day isn't just happening in Washington. It's happening in school boards. It's happening in county commissions. It's happening in judgeships. And it's really important that we have strong, compelling candidates running at every single level of office because it matters so much to our communities. We can go to the next slide. So where are we? Let's talk about representation. Next slide. So nationally, women make up 27.1% of Congress. Women of color make up less than 10%. In statewide executive positions across the country, women are right at 31%. Women of color is less than 7%. When we talk about state legislative seats, 31.3% women, 8.2% are women of color. And finally, when we talk about mayors, of mayors city over 30,000, it's only 26.1%. So not representative of what our actual population demographics look like. And women are really underrepresented in all of these offices, though we've made climbs in recent years. Now let's talk about Georgia. So in Georgia, women make up 25% of Georgia's congressional delegation. That's a big leap thanks to the election of a few congresswomen last year. We only have one woman in a statewide elective executive office, Tricia Pridemore on the Public Service Commission. Women make up 33.9% of Georgia's state legislative seats. Shout out to Senator Parent and to the women in Georgia's delegation. We're beating the national average, but still a far cry below of what our actual representation looks like in terms of how many women make up our populace. And finally, talking about judges. Women make up 38.4% of judgeships, but women of color only make up 12% of judgeships. While we have made some progress over the last few years, we're still far behind parity for what we want to look like for real representation. So let's talk about the good news. Next slide. So I'm going to be biased. One of the things that gives me good news is seeing how many women are running for office across the country and breaking these barriers. So I have listed here a few of our amazing Emerge alums and trailblazers. Special shout out to the folks that are members of the Georgia Bar. So Jen Jordan, state senator, graduated from our program in 2017. Now she's running for attorney general. Sarah Tyndall Gazelle is our Democratic representative on the state election board. She went through our training in 2020. Deborah Gonzalez, DA for the Western Judicial Circuit, is also one of our alums who went through the 2017 program. And Melynee Bray, who recently announced for State Senate District 38, is also one of our program members. She went through it in 2021. Next slide. Bigger picture, more women are running. In the years since the 2016 election, we've seen record numbers of women sign up for our program, show up to run for office, and more often than not win their elections. Emerge women, with the preparation that we're able to provide, really outperform other first-time candidates, and it's really exciting. This year in Georgia, we have women running for nearly every statewide seat on the ballot, which is huge. There's a lot of opportunities that are out there for 2022 and further elections, and it's not too late to decide to make your voice heard. If you want to run as a candidate, you have until the qualifying week in the first week of March. For some of those local races, that's in August, but you want to start thinking about it first week of March. If you don't know that you want to run this year, but you want to run down the line, you have time, and there are many offices from the bottom of the ballot to the top that can be available to you. I also want to emphasize that there's great ways to support your candidates. So thank you for getting to the next slide. So let's talk about ways to get involved. So I'm making it quick, so I know we got to go do the panel, but consider applying for one of our Emerge trainings. I'm going to put a link in the chat. Research opportunities on the ballot in your area. If you don't really have an idea of what office you're interested in yet, just start picking a cause that you care about. Learn what's happening in your area. Go to the Gold Dome, go to City Council, see how they're discussing those issues, and it'll help you learn more about those jobs. If you're not ready to run, pick a candidate that you want to support and commit to helping her reach voters or raising money for her and using your network to activate that power. And finally, you can support organizations like Emerge, Georgia Winlist, Her Term, Vote, Run, Lead that are helping to recruit and train more women to run for office all across the state. One more slide. If you'd like to chat, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. My email is maggie@emergega.org. We also have an upcoming training with all of those women's orgs I just mentioned happening. The Resolved to Run training is happening next Saturday, January 29th. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat. Overall, once again, just want to say thank you so much for having me. Really excited to hear from our panel, and I hope that you'll consider ways that you can get resolved to run, whether this year or in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Maggie. It's awesome to learn about resources like Emerge and how they help politically empower women. So I really appreciate your time today. And now we're going to transition over to our panel discussion. I'm going to briefly introduce our panelists. Our first panelist is Senator Elena Parent. Senator Parent was elected to the state Senate in 2014. She represents District 42. You have some really great facts about Senator Parent there, and I feel so horrible. I had to pare everyone's biography down. All of these women are phenomenal, but Senator, just a little bit about her. She is the vice chair of the Special Judiciary Committee and a member of the Education and Youth Judiciary and Rules Committee. In 2011 and 2012, she serves as the state representative for District 81 in DeKalb County. And among the numerous awards and recognitions that Senator Parent has had, she was the GAWL Leading Lady. She has received that award, and as well as her husband and her received, They received the Clarence Seeliger Champions for Change Award for Women's Resource Center to End Domestic Violence. Very excited to have her. Our next panelist is Justice Shawn LaGrua. Justice LaGrua was appointed by Governor Kemp in December of 2020 to the Supreme Court of Georgia. Prior to joining the Supreme Court, she was appointed to the Superior Court of the Atlanta Judicial Circuit by then Governor Sonny Perdue. Prior to that, she served as Inspector General, and she also served as the Solicitor General for DeKalb County. In 2019 and in 2021, she was appointed to the Judicial Nominating Commission. And Justice LaGrua, a very fun fact about her is she's a founding member and past chair of the Georgia Association of Women Lawyers Judicial Application Review Committee. Phenomenal work. Our next panelist is Judge Melynee Leftridge. Judge Leftridge was elected to be a Fulton County Superior Court judge in the summer of 2020, and she commenced her term in January of 2021. Prior to serving on the bench, she served as a staff attorney for both the Fulton County and the Georgia Court of Appeals. In 2010, prior to her serving on the bench, she was appointed as a Fulton County Magistrate Court judge, where she presided over civil and criminal cases in the Superior State and Magistrate Courts. She's an active member of the Elena alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a public service sorority, and as well as Chums Incorporated. And she's always been very helpful. She's a longstanding member of GAWL, excellent mentor, as well as an excellent public speaker. Our next panelist is Judge Shalanda Miller. Judge Miller is a Fulton County Juvenile Court judge. She was appointed to that bench in January of 2020. She navigates family dependency and delinquency matters in very delicate familiar circumstances. She is the associate judge serving parents with substance abuse disorders on the Family Dependency Treatment Court, which is designed to preserve the family through court intervention and services. In December 2020, Judge Miller launched her campaign for Fulton County Superior Court Judge. She presently serves as GAWL's foundation president and is a dedicated member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a public service sorority. So I'm glad that we talked about that. We're going to get to our panelist questions, but I wanted to give our audience just a little bit of background on our content today. The Women on the One Run, Where Are We Now, was meant to inform our membership about the present status of the women's political power empowerment movement, especially in Georgia. We heard from Maggie Chambers about certain statistics surrounding where we are as women, where we stand in the pursuit of political empowerment, but I want to provide you all a little bit more context in that way. In 1894, the first women state legislators were elected to the US, and that was in Colorado. In the next slide. In 1896, you had the first woman state senator, Martha Hughes Cannon. She was elected to the Utah State Senate. Next slide. And then, of course, over a century ago, you had the 19th Amendment that was adopted, which guaranteed women the right to vote. And as a result of that movement, women have become more and more politically empowered. Next slide. And since 1971, according to the Center for American Women in Politics, the number of the percentages of women lawmakers in Georgia has more than quintupled. We lead the South. We lead the nation in the number of Black female legislators who represent 16.9% of the Georgia legislature. Next slide. In 1977, Judge Dorothy Toft Beasley became the first woman appointed and then elected to the state court of Fulton County. Next slide. And in 1992, Governor Zell Miller appointed Justice Leah Ward Sears as the first woman and first African-American female Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court of the United States. The next slide. And just recently, in 2021, we have Fonnie T. Wills, District Attorney of Fulton County, the first female DA of Fulton County. So these are a few more stats, and we can send this out to the body that reflect the growing progression of the women's political empowerment movement. You can see in 2016 in Georgia, judicial seats held by women made up 27% of the total judicial seats. And now in 2021, it's 38%. Here you have the next slide, Georgia legislature. In 1999, women made up 18.6%. In 2021, we're now at about 32.6% of the total legislature in Georgia. And next. So we're gonna transition over to our panelist questions that is kind of based on this context. This is kind of a brief purview of where we are, but we wanna know from our panelists is this enough? So I'm going to turn my first question to Senator Parent. I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about the trend as it relates to your respective field? I know we went through those numbers kind of fast, but there's a growing trend. It's showing that women are becoming more and more involved in actually getting elected. Given your own personal experiences in seeking and attaining elected and appointed positions in Georgia, do you believe these numbers reflect a fully realized women's political empowerment movement, or is there more to do? And we'll start with Senator Parent. And I'm sorry, before you start, Senator Parent, I do want to let our body know that Senator Parent does have a prior conflict, so she will be hopping off at 7:15, and I believe Judge Leftridge at 7:25 due to a prior conflict that we knew about. So, but we'll start there. Senator Parent.
Thank you so much, Karima, and good evening to everyone. It is really an honor to join all of you this evening, especially feel honored to be on a panel with all of these esteemed judges. And also to hear from Maggie, who I'm thrilled is now over at Emerge Georgia, a relatively new organization. Wish it had been around when I was first running 12 years ago, or actually 13 now. There were some other excellent women's organizations to help tutor and mentor women through the process of running for office then, but Emerge wasn't one of them. So, and actually that's almost sort of part of the answer to your question, Karima. You know, I think that it is certainly very gratifying to see the gains that women have made in the legislative space in Georgia and in the judicial space. There's no question, looking at that chart that you just showed us. I was first elected in 2010. And so at that point, we had about 19% women in the Georgia legislature. And so now being all the way up at 33%, there's no denying that that is very significant progress. But, and, you know, again, circling back around, the addition of more organizations focused on women's empowerment and training and assisting women to run for office and succeed, like Emerge, shows you that this movement is growing, is snowballing, has gotten a lot more momentum over the last 10 or 15 years. That's undeniable. But that being said, I do think that there is still a lot of work to be done. I actually wholeheartedly agree with the statement that Maggie made about women, and not to, you know, I am speaking with a little bit of a broad brush here. Clearly, I don't want to stereotype all women or all men. So let me just say that at the outset. But I do think that that I certainly have noticed in my legislative experience that women are more often likely to try to be compromising problem solvers. And I think we could use, frankly, more than 50% women if we want to actually compromise and solve problems, right? Another thing that I think can be really important to the perspective of why it's critical to have women in office is that within our society, women still do bear most of the brunt or burden or joy, and perhaps it's all of the above, of caregiving for children, for relatives, for, you know, elderly parents. And as such, I think that women have an important role to represent the interests of all of those individuals, perhaps most especially children who are not able to vote. When women are the ones more often specifically looking out for the interests and well-being of our next generations, they're in an important and better position to have a voice in the public policy space on huge numbers of Americans that otherwise are not able to directly participate. So all of the progress is amazing. I think that a fire has been lit under a lot of women, but the statistics are still true. We're still far under where we would like to see women's representation, and women tend to still need to feel, you know, I think Maggie said it, like asked numerous times. That's a statistic we hear a lot, to run. Women can be a little less likely to take what they perceive as a risk. They want to make sure they're presenting their best face to the world and really know what they're talking about. And that probably comes from decades and decades of women having to really, and especially minority women, right? Having to be better than to be taken seriously. So it still is seen probably by a lot of women as more of a risk, where men are more likely to be able to, from their personality tendencies, pound their chest and, sort of bluff their way through something, right? So I'll stop there.
Excellent feedback. I'm going to continue down to Judge Leftridge, Justice LaGrua, Judge Miller.
Well, I don't know how I can come behind that. I think that Senator Parent said just about everything that needed to be said. So I'm not going to duplicate what it is that she so thoughtfully offered. But I will simply make the remark that this particular bench, the Fulton County Superior Court, happens to have more women on it than men. So we have 11 women and 9 men. And I know that that does not reflect the rest of our state, but I do think that I should mention that we are wonderfully top heavy the other way here. So that's all I'll say about that.
Yes, Justice LaGrua.
First, I want to say how much fun it is to see my friend and colleague, Judge Leftridge, actually on the bench. I don't think I've had the opportunity to see her in court since we sort of passed as she came in and I was going out. So congrats, and to see my friend and colleague from the juvenile court bench, Judge Miller, who I've known for many years and was in front of me for a long time. I share everybody's thoughts. I would throw a couple of things out. Less than 2 years ago, the Supreme Court of Georgia had 1 woman on it. It now has 4. Almost half, with 1 more would make a majority, actually. So I don't think you get a half a woman or a half a man. So it's either going to be heavy on one side or the other. And I think that's huge progress on the Supreme Court. In fact, when I was sworn in a little over a year ago, I was the first time in history there were 3 women on the court. With the swearing in of Judge Colvin, it's the first time there have ever in Georgia's history been 4 women on the court. I think sometimes, and I think this is a great panel to illustrate this, that women need to help women. Women have not always been women's best advocates. In that same vein, I would say that we should not forget that some of our male colleagues have also helped us to get where we are. So I think there are men that support this movement as well as women. So I don't think we should just discount all the men that have helped us to get to where we are, because they believe in the equality and the need to have a balanced voice. And so I share Judge Leftridge's points that Fulton County is very strongly female, and it has been for a little while. It was almost even for one, and then it's tipped. So I think we've made a lot of progress. Is there always room to make more progress? I think that's true in any, I hate to use the word cause because I don't necessarily believe in causes per se, but in this idea that we need women to be engaged, I think we've made progress, and I think we can always make more. But I think we should continue to reach back and pull people along. People ask me a lot, why at this point am I still engaged in so many things? It's not because there's necessarily a lot that I'm looking to going forward. It's because so many people helped me, and I am trying very hard to stay engaged so I can help those that are coming behind me, like the people that came before me helped me.
Excellent. Thank you, Justice LaGrua, for that. Judge Miller?
I don't think I have anything to add to this particular question. I think all of these fantastic. I'm so humbled to be among such wonderful women. But Justice LaGrua said this. I think all of these women here have helped me at some point in my career, whether it was Senator Parent, GAWL Leadership Academy, Judge Leftridge mentored me when I was a magistrate judge. Judge LaGrua was one of the best jurists that I ever was before, honestly, and really mentored me and helped me along as I pursued becoming a juvenile court judge. And so the progress is being made because of women like you all and Maggie, who have organizations that keep pushing us and pulling us along. So thank you, ladies, for everything that you guys continue to do to champion women and women in this movement of leadership in these important roles that impact so many folks.
I think that was a great full circle comment. Everything that all of you are doing is doing so much to encourage, well beyond Judge Miller, the next generation, my daughter and her friends and the young women that are coming behind them. So thank you all so much. I'm going to move on to our second question. I'll start with Senator Parent. Our plight toward political empowerment is not what it was a century ago. In what ways do you believe the process is better or worse than the plight women have faced historically, based on your own personal experiences, of course?
I think, and I'll be more brief this time so that I don't go on and give all of our other panelists more of an opportunity to weigh in. Yeah, I think it's absolutely clear that we are in a vastly different circumstance than we were 100 years ago. And you know what, adding to the list of people that we need to thank are all the women who worked so hard over 100 years ago to get the vote for women, right? I mean, think of how tough those women were. I have no doubt that were they alive today, many of them would be on the bench or in elected office. So, you know, things are vastly different, but in a way, it sort of depends a little bit on what part of America's culture you're coming from. And that's sort of something that I think we need to unpack a little bit more. There's only some segments of our society feel like more traditional gender roles are appropriate. That may be out of religion or culture. And that's totally fine. I don't want to discount that. But one of the things that I think we do need more of, at least in the area that in which I serve, is we have a lot more Democratic women elected in the General Assembly than we have Republican women. And I would really like to see a little bit more parity between the genders on the Republican side of the aisle. The House of Representatives is better. The Senate, for almost all the time that I've been there, has had one woman. At times it was out of 38 senators. Now it's 36 Republican senators and 2 are women. I think there's significant growth opportunity. Within my own caucus, in the Senate Democratic caucus, we actually have a majority women. So we definitely have an imbalance there. And I know that in more recent years, I think after the 2016 or 2018 election, there has been an organization founded that was focused on recruiting Republican women. And I think some of that does play into some of the cultural differences and strains that we come from. So that's one thing I just wanted to add to the conversation, that I think it's important to encourage women from all stripes to make their voices heard and seek office.
Thank you, Senator Parent. I know you have to hop off at 7:15. Do you have any final remarks maybe for our members? A lot of them are interested in running, want more information, want to know how you got there, what resources you used. What in words of encouragement would you have for?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just, I'm sure all of us could go on for an hour about our respective efforts to get where we are today. But there's no doubt that becoming an elected official in any capacity is a team effort. So I don't think there's anyone who could say that they got there on their own. But it wasn't really until I ran for the first time where I realized, okay, wow, you have the candidate, but around the candidate, there has to be a ton of people who believe in that person, who are really doing, who are not only the campaign staff, but the supporters. You know, look, within our system as it exists today, it can cost a decent amount of money to run for and win and retain elective office. And I think it's really important that everyone should know that a lot of small dollar donations equal a smaller number of big donations. And I think that's been proven or demonstrated more for the public in the last, 5 to 8 years with sort of like small dollar online fundraising. That's extremely critical because it allows people from backgrounds where they don't have a really affluent circle. Maybe they were the first in their family to go to college, and they're not raised by a well-to-do lawyer and doctor, and all of their parents' friends are lawyers and doctors and that kind of thing. I mean, my husband and I are both attorneys, so I was fortunate. I mean, I'll be very honest about that. I was very fortunate that because we were both lawyers, we did know people that were able to give me money to start, but it wasn't cheap, and I still spent a year on the phone begging for money, and then 6 months knocking on doors. I think the fundraising part can be really hard. It is so awkward. I know a couple people for whom, they just get on there, they just go ahead and do it. They're sort of shameless, right? And they can be very, very successful. But for most of us, it is no fun, and it doesn't feel good. And so what really helped me break the logjam on that was talking to mentors who had been through it, and some of the trainings I did from women groups that help guide women to run for office. The particular one I'm thinking of is an Emily's List training that was brought here through WinList, one of the other organizations mentioned earlier. And the Emily's List representative came down, and she was just in the room with all of us, and she very specifically walked us through exactly how to do it. She's like, you ask for the amount of money, and then you take a sip of water. You don't start being like, but I mean, it'd be great if you could do that much, but if that's too much, like, just, okay, fine, let's just go for a cup of coffee. She's like, you just shut your mouth, and after you make an ask, so that they have to answer you, and a million other really important tips. And more than that, it just gave me the confidence to do it, to say. Another really important thing that a mentor said to me in this same space was, people want to give you money. They want someone with your values and your voice to represent them, their voice, down at Georgia State Capitol. And a lot of people don't want to run for office themselves. Obviously, we are talking about wanting to recruit a lot more, and especially a lot more women. But the reality is most people are not going to pick running for office as their path, right? But a lot of people still understand that they want competent people that they believe in, who share their values and are going to be someone that they can be proud to be represented by in office, on the bench, in Congress, etc. And those people should therefore be willing to put some money behind those particular people if they would like to see them there, if they would like to see them succeed. And I think sort of developing that culture too, which kind of gets into the women helping women thing, is pretty important. The first thing I would say to do is definitely sign up for all the trainings that you can. You also meet, you can create a real sisterhood among people. You can hold each other's hands. I formed a little sisterhood 13 years ago with Sherry Boston, who's now the DA in DeKalb County, and Stacey Evans, who's been in the state house with me. We all were running for the first time at the same time, and we are still just each other's biggest supporters and cheerleaders all these years later. So you form a group like that, and going to the trainings is a great way to do it. You can share fears, and you can share tips, and you can share successes, and that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I want to thank you so much for your time and just the passion with which you speak. You really motivate a lot of women who are probably on their 5th time being asked to run or getting close to that 7 times. So I really appreciate your time today and thank you for your input. I'm going to backtrack to the question that was asked initially and open it up to our remaining panelists is, what ways do you believe the process is better or worse than the plight women have faced historically?
Am I up next?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
I think that it's been shown that women have a tendency, a lot of women have a tendency to vote for women. And I think you can see that in DeKalb County, you can see that in Fulton County, you can see that in the metro area counties that if you look at the statistics that women are very inclined to vote for women. And one of the discussions I had with my political strategist was, you know, we need to make sure everybody knows, like, you're female. I mean, your name is kind of different. I mean, I guess they can make out that, you know, that it's Melynee, you know, but if we put the Leftridge and the Harris in there too, which is my legal name, then, you know, it's a married woman's name, you know, that kind of thing. And I've never asked you this, Justice LaGrua, but I've
I
always
was
been
waiting
meaning
for
to
this.
ask you, Shawn LaGrua, but you're always Shawn Ellen LaGrua, which I've always thought was, you know, strategically on point and on purpose. And I love it if that's what you're going to tell me the answer is. But I've always, you know, appreciated that you have distinguished yourself as Shawn Ellen LaGrua. And I've always believed it to be because you wanted people to know you are female, because there is a benefit, at least in the metro area, to running as a woman. So I guess that is one small dot, you know, in your bigger question. I'm sorry I didn't broaden it. I feel like I got to talk fast and just sort of pick a point. And so that's the one I've chosen to make, is that the difference is that now we are more progressive as women and willing to vote for women, as opposed to voting for men, as may have been the case 50, 60 years ago. Okay. I stand.
Judge Leftridge, you are psychic. I never used my middle name until I was appointed to be Solicitor General. And I have to tell you that as recently as this afternoon, when I was canceling a reservation because COVID canceled somewhere I was supposed to go, I was talking to the agent for the airline and giving them all my information. They said, "And who are you?" And I said, "Shawn." And there was a pause and said, "Well, no, who are you?" "I'm Shawn." And they're like, "You're Shawn?" "Yes, I'm Shawn." So I say that to this day, if I don't have my middle name, people assume that I am a guy. Considering I wanted to be a guy when I was a kid and play baseball and football and all those things, it's okay. But I think Judge Leftridge is absolutely correct. If you're a female, you need to figure out, and there are names that go both ways: Pat, Shawn. I could go on. I'm not going to waste the time to go through them, but you know what they are. And so if you have a middle name, or there's a way to make sure folks know that you're a female. I truly appreciated Senator Parent's comments about the fundraising. On a couple of levels, though, I will tell you, I've talked to a number of fundraisers, and I've had to do fundraising for the last, 14, 15 years. Unfortunately, I would tell you my experience is that women are not as eager to give money as men are. And eager may not be the word, but maybe willing is the word. And the other thing that I have been told and I have experienced is that women don't get as much money when they ask for it as men do. And I think that's an education piece for us to do for women, because if we want women in office, they need to be supported by women. When I was trying to figure out who the chairs and co-chairs of my campaign were going to be, I was determined that at least one of my 2 co-chairs would be a woman. I was not going to run for office and have 2 male co-chairs. Now, I don't want to exclude the men completely, but I thought it was really important as a woman that I have a woman co-chair. So those are just, we've come a long way. I don't think there's any comparison to where we were 50 years ago, or really even 20 years ago. I was a young prosecutor straight out of law school, and I was able to deal with it. But if you're going to say you've never been sexually harassed, if you've been around that long, you're probably not being completely honest.
The harsh truth, Justice LaGrua. We've come a long way, but some things, unfortunately, are still the same.
Yep.
Judge Miller?
You're muted.
She may be having some connectivity issues. I will pause that because I know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
My internet
Kind of freezing.
So I agree. I think ways to go. Someone mentioned that women tend to be.
Judge Miller, you're going in and out. Oh. Okay. We'll come right back to you, Judge Miller. As soon as the audio comes back in, I'll go to Judge Leftridge, as I know you have another engagement. And I know this is a topic that we could probably spend a couple days on, and maybe this is actually a 3-part series. We're focusing on where we are now, where are we going is next, and then what resources do we need to get there is the final session. But Judge Leftridge, I'll offer up that final question to you. What resources helped you get to where you are? What resources do you think we have now that may help others on this webinar get to where they want to go?
I think I'll start by saying that I ran in 2012 and I did not prevail. And that was the biggest teacher that I could have ever had, because it focused me on figuring out what the formula might have been for others. And so I think what I would say is that if you're considering running for office, if you haven't been collecting campaign flyers and mailers from everybody, start a drawer full of mailers. Just every time they come in the mail, put them in the drawer, because you're going to want to look at those to get ideas later on. That would be a point of advice that you could start doing now. If there were particular campaigns that you admired when you got those flyers, or you saw how they were doing their social media, call up those candidates and ask if they'll go out with you or Zoom with you, whatever the climate may be at the point that you decide that you want to run, and take a look at their disclosure reports, because you'll see sort of how they spent their money in order to get their message out. So I would definitely say research candidates and troll through their disclosure reports and see who did what, and how they spent the money that they made. Stay connected. GAWL, GAWL, Gate City, your civic organizations that you're members of, stay connected, stay visible. And when I say stay visible, I mean seek opportunities to speak, seek opportunities to give back. And when someone asks you to do something, like be a panelist, or come and pass out toys at a toy drive, or donate food, default to yes. Just do it. Because everything that you do in service to the community puts you in the eye of everybody else. And so you get something out of it too. You're giving back, and you're getting at the same time. So I guess that's what I would say. To sort of dovetail back on something that one of the other panelists mentioned, I think it was Senator Parent, having a great team. I think Justice LaGrua mentioned her team as well, her co-chairs. You are the candidate. And I don't tell my mechanic how to fix my car. So if you surround yourself with people who know the campaign culture and what to do, get the right people around you and be willing to be led to a certain extent and rely on the people that you're paying to assist you. Don't turn over the reins completely, because you need to make sure that, you know, as a judge, you have certain rules that you have to follow, and they may not be fully aware of some of the things you can or cannot do. But, and same for a judicial candidate. But surround yourself with people who know the landscape, because it is a completely different culture, campaign culture.
Thank you, Judge Leftridge. We'll move to Justice LaGrua and then Judge Miller for both questions.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, great to
much for
see
your
you.
time.
I think that one of the pieces of advice, besides talking to people that have done it, is, and this goes back further than when you decide to run, you never know where you're going to see people again. So you should network as if, not that you're going to need their help, but you don't know where you're going to see them again. I have a bunch of examples, but I can give you a recent one. When I was appointed to the bench, I needed a term clerk. And so I reached out to a colleague of mine that was an adjunct professor at Georgia State. And he had a student that was very sharp, and Troutman ended up giving him a deferral so he could clerk with me. When I needed an intern or wanted an intern, the term clerk reached out to somebody he knew at Georgia State. Since then, we've had all kinds of referrals. When I applied to be the Solicitor General back in 2004, everybody thinks the governor appointed me. And while that's technically true, when I went for my interview, I never met the governor. I interviewed with a young legal counsel in the governor's office by the name of Harold P. Melton, my Chief Justice. Fast forward that many years. And so those are just, I could go on with examples. Sherry in Boston and I have intersected for years and years and years. We became friends probably 15, 18 years ago. But when she became solicitor, I had been there and we talked about it. And then she became DA. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to keep in touch with the people you know. I remember Judge Miller being in my courtroom with the county attorney's office, and I was impressed. And I called her up and just said, you know, let me know if I can help, if there's anything I can do, because I was impressed with her presence in the courtroom. Had she come in and done a bad job and her name came up at some point, I probably would have been, well, you know, I don't know. But she very much impressed me as a lawyer appearing in my courtroom. And so hopefully I encouraged her to do some things.
And that I'm sure of. And that's a great segue to Judge Miller. And you can actually address both questions, because I think you got cut off in your response to our previous question. So I'll allow you to address both.
So thank you all for indulging me. Apparently I was freezing. I'm now on my cell phone. And so this is part of, I said, I was starting that we've come a long way, but we've got a ways to go. I think Senator Parent said, women typically play the caregiver role. Well, I'm mom. At my house right now at 7:30, it's mommy. Nobody cares about anything else except that I'm mom. So I'm like tucked away in a corner on my cell phone trying to talk to you all while they're out there running around. And we've got to support our sisters in that too. I think, of course, we've got to give money. Of course, we've got to give our vote, but we've also got to be those people who jump in and help with the other things that are a part of the responsibilities of being a woman. And I think as women, we tend to try to balance everything. And it's not always feasible when you're trying to move to the next level. Luckily, I have a great partner and husband who's here, and he's out there wrangling the cattle. But that's one of the ways that we can help, especially if you know it is important that we consider, and I think Senator Parent alluded to it, but didn't just come right out and say it. Socioeconomically, we need better representation too. And that can be a barrier for all of this. If you're a single mom and don't have the help or the resources to find daycare or evening care while you go grind in the streets, that can be a barrier. So we've got to help with some of those barriers. So that's one of the ways that I think, I think we've gotten way, way better, but we still got some ways to go in evening all that out. And then with regard to advice, Justice LaGrua just alluded to it, your reputation. Your reputation goes before you go anywhere. So be prepared, be on time, be professional, be courteous, be kind, be gentle with people, because you don't know what today was for someone. And so the snarky thing that you say could be the thing that turns it around, or the smile and the grace that you give someone could be the thing that turns the day around. And that will precede you no matter what. And so when you're building those networks and those relationships, people will remember that. People will remember that you were kind and generous, that you were a granter of mercy in situations where you probably didn't have to be, that you were a well-prepared, very thoughtful lawyer. You know, I struggle with this being a woman. I think sometimes we don't want to appear too gentle or too soft but if that's who you are, and not all women are, but I think some women are, and think that can't be what they present to the world. Be your authentic self. Like you can be a great advocate and a great adversary and still be gentle and kind and get your point across. So be your authentic self, whatever that self is. Don't try to be something that you're not, because that shows up too. So those would be my main two. Your reputation will go before you, and be your authentic self always.
Amazing advice. If there are any questions from the body, please type them into the chat at this time. I do want to remind everyone that, we've gotten a lot of great advice tonight from these phenomenal panelists. And I have to say that each of you, even though I haven't met most of our panelists in person, each of you have motivated me in some way to get to where I am, coming from a public defender's office all the way to now counsel for MARTA, senior associate counsel for MARTA. And I just want to say that you may not think what you're doing affects people because you're doing the day-to-day, but all of you are motivating each and every one of us in your own way. And I really appreciate it, having you as examples in all of the things that you've said tonight. But this is a three-part series. It's the Path to Empowerment with the focus on women on the run. Today, we were talking about where we are now. Our next session, which we'll send out to the body, is where are we going? And our last session is what resources do we need to get there? We have tons of panelists that are ready and willing to give you all tons of information on that. So we hope that you will join us for the remainder of this session. So of this series, excuse me. I don't see any questions in the chat. If my co-chair, and at this time, I'd like to thank my co-chair, Jakima Basco, as she checks for questions, and as well as the programs committee, Leslie Cadle, Tasha Ziegler, and of course, our GAWL president, Tina Folsom. for helping us create this content and offer this series to our membership and our body. It's been very, very helpful and also inspirational. So I'd like to thank you. If any of our panelists have closing remarks, we probably can take another minute to just close out at this time.
Karima, the only thing I would say is don't be afraid to reach out to folks and ask for their help, to be a mentor, to be a friend, to be an advisor. The other thing I would say is the folks you're talking about can be very busy. Don't hesitate to reach out if you don't get an immediate response, or try and find who they may work with, like an assistant. My assistant is my godsend at making sure I get back to people, because I get all these emails and I've learned finally just forward them to her so she can go through every couple of days. Have you responded to this? Have you responded to this? Because I don't want to forget anybody, but I can get 100 emails a day. And if I open them when I'm out at a meeting, then when I get back to the office, they're not new on my computer, they're open. And so they just go away. So don't hesitate. You don't want to call somebody 5 times a day, but if you don't hear back, feel free to reach out again. It doesn't mean that they're not willing to talk to you.
And mine was just going to be, don't wait 7 times, right? Yeah, definitely. I am a prayerful person, so I definitely pray about it and consult with your close circle about it. But don't wait. Why not you? There is work to be done, and why not you?
Again, thank you all. And I do want to thank all of the judges that attended today. We have Judge Kimberly Alexander. I see Judge Cope, who is actually the inspiration for this series with her Women Empowering Other Women theme as GAWL immediate past president. And any other, I want to thank Maggie Chambers, of course, for that presentation from Emerge, Georgia, and any other, all of our members for attending tonight. And if you love this content, please join us for our next portion of the series, Women on the Run, Where Are We Going? Thank you all so much. Thank you especially to our panelists. We are so grateful for your time tonight. All right, everyone.
Thanks, Karima, for hosting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody.